7 tips I wish I had known before taking Zepbound tirzepatide. Hi friends, I'm Elizabeth, Countess of Shopping. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Freddie. I got my first Zepbound. It's the compound of Zepbound, so it's tirzepatide. It is not from Eli Lilly. I was on Zepbound. Well, first I was on Mounjaro. The Mounjaro shortage went to Zepbound. Zepbound shortage went to a compound, and I'm temporarily on a compound. My heart's desire is to go back to taking Zepbound. We're gonna do my hair as we go through these 7 tips of what I wish I had known before taking the compound, and hopefully will help you. Hopefully it will help you. But my heart's desire, to be clear, is to take Zepbound. I don't want to take a compound. I want to take brand name. So that's totally clear. I could not get my medication. It has been weeks and weeks and weeks. It will soon be a month of me not being able to get my medication. I've called all around. I've done everything within human power to get Zepbound, but the Zepbound shortage is too strong for me. I feel like I'm fighting against Thanos. It is too strong for me. So we're gonna go through, I'm gonna curl my hair while we talk about this. I got my shot. I literally just got back from LA. I was at a YouTube summit. I'm gonna use my new little YouTube notebook. The first thing that I was super interested about when I ordered my compound, and I worked through Join Fridays. This video is not sponsored by them, but they have been very gracious to give an affiliate discount code, which is Queen. I'll link that down below. And that's how I can pivot from taking Mounjaro to Mounjaro to Zepbound, and then over to the compound is because of Join Fridays. They prescribe both. So I can easily pivot as we go through this shortage as well. That's heat protectant. So how it came was tip number 1. I got my compound through Red Rock Compound Pharmacy. At Join Fridays, you can have different compound pharmacies depending on what state you live in. I live in Virginia. Red Rock is coming from Utah. Compounds are taking a hot second to get because of so many people are switching over. So you do need to be patient. If you use Join Fridays for new patients, it typically can take about a week or 2 to get an appointment. Sometimes you can get a last minute appointment. That's actually happened to me a couple of times. I just check multiple times throughout the day to see if there's a cancellation if you're a new patient. If you're an OG patient like an existing one, I sent in a note, and you can make a request for a video chat to go ahead and get the compound with it. And so it was really easy to switch over. I was taking Zepbound 15 milligrams and then just switched over to the corresponding tirzepatide compound 15 milligrams, like the equivalent to that. So it was easy to get shipped out. Now, this is what I was worried about was, what does it come packaged in? So it comes packaged in, making sure I'm not showing my address, this like super thick packaging. I was quite impressed actually how it was sent to me. It has on here a little sticker that says fragile on there as well. Also came with ice packs included. So with mine, it wasn't a crazy hot day. And that was one of my questions was, here in Virginia, it had gotten to be like 80 some degrees. Ignore the stuff in the back. I literally just got back from LA, like literally flew across the country in 25 hours back and forth. So excuse my stuff in the background. And so I was worried about the packaging with it. And so it came with all of the accoutrement included in there. And that was my big, oh, there's more stuff over there. I want you guys to, I know you guys miss Mr. Freddie. So it came with all of the stuff included. And that was what I was wondering in the packaging. I'm like, what did they give you? It came with the alcohol wipes included. It came with the needles in there. And then it came with the compound. Of course, it was wrapped a little bit differently with the compound. It had a greenish foil covering on there. And then that's me after taking the first dose, which is the equivalent to Zepbound 15 milligrams. Again, I don't want to be taking the compound. I want to be taking brand name. I want to be purchasing directly from Eli Lilly, but I cannot get Mounjaro. I cannot get Zepbound. I cannot get any of it. And so I don't want to be off my medication. Having lost 88 pounds in 16 months, I got to keep this journey going. I've got 100 pounds to lose, and technically with my BMI, probably more than that. My main focus is the 100 pounds though. So it came with this, and then it also came with the injection information. I'm still like shaking, holding it. I'm still like super nervous about it. Tip number 1 was the packaging. I just didn't know what the packaging looked like when you got it. Tip number 2 was different compound pharmacies. Now, obviously the reason why I didn't want to take a compound is there's been so much press about bad compound pharmacies. And there are. Be very careful, do your due diligence. Despite me saying how much I love Red Rock right now, with what I've gotten, I'm like super, super happy. How much I love Join Friday. Like I love them. I'm recommending, that's what I'm using. That's my experience, strength, and hope. I want to encourage you to do your own due diligence. We talk about this a lot in my free encouragement group, that you need to do your own due diligence. So for any compound pharmacy, right? Like, I think that that's super, super important. I don't take any sort of ownership of your health, and you shouldn't take any sort of ownership of my health. This is simply my experience, strength, and hope. And talk to your own healthcare provider too, and seek wise counsel. So with it, there's different compound pharmacies. I personally, we have near my Starbucks, there's a couple of options locally that are not online for compounds. One of them is next to my local Starbucks. They are a new pop-up shop. They were toting that they were an IV shop, which I know because I have medical friends who've told me, Elizabeth, do not get those IV bags. There's no regulation here within Virginia, or minimal regulation, I should say, within them. If you need, like, don't do that, because I had been talking about how I wanted to do one. They're like, don't do that. So this IV bag shop started to sell semaglutide. I noticed because it was at the drive-through line. They're advertising because they're right next to Starbucks. And I'm like, I wonder what their legal qualifications are here in Virginia to have to dispense medication. For example, Join Fridays are healthcare providers. What is, for here in Virginia, you don't, like, the regulations on it, I'm sure it varies state by state, but you essentially, like, it scares me who can give out these compounds and the regulation on them, which is why I can see why Eli Lilly did end up suing some of the medical spas, medi spas, because they were toting, I mean, it was a mess. And there's messy compound places. So, like, for example, I would not go to that IV place because I don't know, is there even a doctor working there? Like, we have another local place here that also does give semaglutide compounds. And it's run by a doctor, a really brilliant doctor at that. And I would go to them if I wasn't with Join Fridays, if I didn't have that relationship locally, because I know the doctor, and I know that the doctor is well educated, and that's the person who is prescribing it. They have a medical background. It's just not like, oh, I got a certificate and boopsie. They're now doing this as like a side hustle business, or like a way to like get fast cash type of thing. Those compound pharmacies scare me. But there's major ones like Red Rock, Hollandale. There's a bunch of other ones too that are like the main hubs in the US from what I hear. And also in my free group, there's thousands of people who are taking compounds. And so we've had quite an in-depth discussion. I'll link all my free resources, by the way, down in the description link below for you too. So knowing that, at least from Join Fridays, that there's different compound pharmacies that you can get shipped from depending on your state. And even if you live in Virginia, you may not get Red Rock. I don't know. I honestly don't know how that works with how it's determined. I think Hollandale's in Florida, right? And so I'm in Virginia. So it's just interesting the way that the supply chain is working. Very, very happy with how the compound came shipped. It wasn't frozen. It wasn't crazy hot. It had those ice packs in there that were still cold. And that's what it actually looked like getting it. So it was sealed. It had the little rubber stopper on the top. It had the directions on the side. And so I was super, super happy about the packaging, and knowing it was Red Rock, I was happy about that too. This is where I go through the internet. There's been a lot of chatter about Red Rock. I'm happy with them. I'm actually very happy with them. So just do your own research. Is it from a reputable place? Who's citing the source? Even as like someone like me who's on YouTube, check my sources, check my facts. I think that that's super, super important, and I encourage that. Number 3, the directions. I wish I had known this in advance a little bit better about the directions for taking a compound. I was so used to, like, it's so simple with my pen, with Mounjaro or Zepbound, just to use the pen, you just inject the pen, you don't have to think about it, you don't have to do any sort of anything. It's dummy proof essentially. And you have 3 locations you can inject it in, near your belly button, your upper thigh, and then the back of your arm, the back of your upper arm. And so the directions on these were emailed to me from Red Rock, and then they were enclosed. Enclosed on here, this is where it got confusing for me. And I have a college degree. My husband has his master's degree. We've run multiple multi-million-dollar businesses. We're well versed at reading like contracts and difficult information. So I say that to say, I feel like I could walk in and read these directions, and y'all, I sat here for, no joke, 25 minutes rereading it over. I think part of it was because I was nervous. I was not understanding, because I'm used to, for Zepbound and Mounjaro, it's 2.5 milligrams, 5 milligrams, 7.5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, 12.5 milligrams, and 15 milligrams. That's the dosing. For compounds, it had on here, I was so confused, 60 mg / 3 ml. That confuses me. I don't understand. I don't understand. But then I'm like, okay, I'm taking 15 mg of the dose times 4 because it's a month's worth. That would make it for 60 mg, which I guess the equivalent to milliliters, 3 milliliters. This is where I'm like, oh my goodness, I got confused. And it says quantity left 0, quantity there's 3. There's 70, inject 75 units, which is 15 milligrams subcutaneously every week as directed. This is compound medication, stored in your refrigerator. Discard after 28 days after first vial puncture. So after I puncture this, this needs to get thrown away in 28 days. So I got the email. My husband and I read the email. We read the insight directions, but going from milligrams to then the reference of milliliters, then the reference to units, and then the needle was in units, I got very confused. And I was already very nervous. Like the whole thing about compounds has made me very nervous. Again, my preference is to take brand names like Mounjaro and Zepbound. I started to get very nervous, and I got more and more nervous not being 100% secure in, okay, it's saying units, it's saying these different units of measurement in there. That made me more nervous. I was very nervous about the whole thing. I'm like praying the whole time. I was just nervous. So the directions were clear, but, I don't have a medical background at all. Like, at all. Like, I can run a multi-million-dollar business and create one from scratch and do that over and over and over again, but I cannot. I have no, so I kept thinking, God bless all of our nurses and healthcare, RNs and all the nurses. That I was trying to think of the other acronym for other nurses, like, God bless, and medical people, because I am not that, and I was getting jiggery. So the directions were clear, but having it go to units, that did somewhat stump me, and it didn't say in the email that it was going to be units. That was the one thing I wish was a little bit clearer, was I wish it did say like units, or like the specific, what is a unit then? Like, so what's the unit of the unit? You know what I mean? Like that just, I don't know. Again, I'm not medical, obviously, clearly. So that was a little bit confusing, and we had to read it and reread it several times, both my husband and I, because I was like, babe, come over and help me. I'm nervous. I don't understand. And so that was tip number 4, was I got really scared about it. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do this. But I knew I had to do it if I wanted to stay on my shot sequence. And I knew I was leaving for LA to go to this YouTube thing. I wanted to have my shot in. I also wanted, like, just the timing of this, I wanted to have my shot. And so I was scared, and that was tip number 4. I was really nervous about taking this. And so if you're nervous, I feel like that's totally okay. Like, that's where it goes back to doing my due diligence and just repeating back to myself, what are the facts? The fact of the matter is, someone who prescribed this to me, I really trust them. The fact of the matter is, from my research with Red Rock, I trust them. The fact of the matter is, so many group members that I trust within the group are using Red Rock, and I trust their opinion that they've had a really fabulous, like, they've had a very favorable experience. So therefore I should too. I trusted the facts were the packaging came really well packaged. That made me super happy, and it like alleviated my fears that it came really, well packaged together. But I was scared. And my husband even said, and I was like, I wish you didn't say that. He goes, it is not an FDA, like Eli Lilly has to go through so much with the FDA to get that FDA approval. Compounds, it's not. Like, it's not. And again, going back to that IV drip bag place next to my Starbucks here in my rural town, is giving out compounds. They're giving out semaglutide, which is different than tirzepatide. Still, semaglutide is Wegovy, Ozempic active ingredient. Tirzepatide is the active ingredient in Mounjaro and Zepbound. And so I was scared, and that was tip number 4. Tip number 5 is it took longer than I thought to have the injection, meaning I could do my pen with Mounjaro Zepbound literally like in 60 seconds. Pull it out of the fridge, take the cap off, unlock it, inject it, no big deal, easy peasy lemon squeezy, and roll on with my day, and then put it properly, dispose of it. This, figuring out the injections, figuring out the different injection sites. There were different injection sites. You can put it in your buttocks if you wanted to. I did not. I opted not to. I need to dye my roots. Holy gazolies. Different areas you can inject. And then just getting this needle, like, which end is up? Like, literally, I kept saying that to my husband. I'm like, which one is the plunger? Which one's the actual needle? Am I going to pull it and I'm going to like stab myself? Like, this is where I feel like I'm smarter than the average bear, but I felt like a nincompoop. I'm shaking. My kid's asking about his math homework. I'm like, don't come in the kitchen, because I didn't want him to see me like doing my shots and stuff. And I'm like, don't come in. And then he's asking me a question about his math homework. I'm like, oh, I gotta get ready for LA to go. So this is where the needle is, and then this is the plunger side. So you just pull that off. I felt like the biggest nincompoop. I'm sure medical people are watching me right now and they're like, that's the plunger. So pulling the needle, learning how to put the actual medication into a needle, that took a moment. The air bubble thing. And people have confirmed to me that the needle's so small. It is a small needle. It's bigger than the pen. It seems like it is, but it probably isn't. It's bigger than the pen, but it didn't hurt any worse. It just took longer. And because I was doing 75 units, which is up to from here to here, that whole thing, it took physically longer. Like, that's longer than like the pen where you go click 1, 2, 3, like you can count and hear it click again. There was no clicking. So my husband, there was an instruction about blood, and so he started to get nervous. He's like, what if you do start to bleed when we're doing this mid go? And I'm like, don't pull it out, pull out the needle. And anyways, we're not medical people. We're not medical people. So that was number 5. Allowing next time for my next injection next week, I will allow like an hour to do this, to reread the literature, review stuff, like take a pause to make sure I'm not like literally shaking while I'm doing it. Number 6 was disposing of the needle properly. With my Zepbound injection and my Mounjaro injection, it's really simple to like put the cap on and then put it into, you can do it one of 2 ways. One in the sharps container where it's like the red boxes that you can put like plastic things for needles to dispose of, or you can also put them in old laundry jugs and then just mark it with like the poison symbol and like needles and harmful. You can do that as well. But this is an actual needle. Like, that's a needle. And so just, oh golly, I shouldn't have taken that cap off. Am I gonna stick myself? Disposing of that, I was very nervous for my son. I'm like, I'm not leaving this thing laying around. Also, it has like, it was injected in my body. Like, that needs to go. And obviously the pen is too, obviously. But if I leave that up over like on a high shelf, my son is old enough where he knows I'm like, do not touch that. He won't. The dog can't get to it because it's high enough. But this needle had me freaking out. I immediately went to go dispense of it. The dispenser is now in another room, up on a high bookcase behind. Like, I went to extra lengths with those needles just to make sure that they're not going to hurt an animal, a guest. My son knows, and I'll tell him. He's 8. He's a smart kid, but still, just the fact of like a needle, it just made me very nervous. And my husband reminded me, he's like, you're doing this for your health. And he was reminding me why I was taking a GLP-1 medication and going through all the litany, because I have a long list as to why I take GLP-1 medication, and was reminding me, like right now I'm losing my breath. It made me so nervous. Like, I'm not trying to be melodramatic, but it made me really nervous because I feel like I'm darned if I do and darned if I don't. If I can't not take my medication, GLP-1 medication, which is why I went from Mounjaro to Zepbound and Zepbound to this, and then just worrying, like, and I've talked about this in other videos, like, I don't want to be without my medication. It's changed my life. Losing 88 pounds is like my dog and a kid. Like, that's a lot of weight. It's life-changing, and I just, not just because that's a diminishing word, I don't want to go backwards. I want to go forwards. I have a lot of ambition with my physical health that I want to be able to do. And so I feel like this shortage has, for me and thousands and hundreds of thousands of other people, really screwed us. Like, to have this amazing medication, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. But not having adequate supply of it is hard. And so this option, I feel like, is the best option for right now. It's a right now choice to have a compound. But figuring this out was another layer of stress that I wasn't necessarily anticipating. I've shared, and I have been sharing for the past 2 months, and I was able, previous to this, 2 months, to be able to get boxes of Zepbound. I said, as soon as I can't get it, I'm gonna go on to a compound. I've been saying that for 2 months now. And finally, for this 3rd month, I could not, it's been a month of waiting. And I was like, forget this. I'll just take the compound. not knowing that it would be a little bit more complicated because I'm not medical. And I felt kind of like an idiot, like taking it. And I did it. And so let's talk about that. Let's go into the solutions. I don't mean to cry. I feel like this journey has been so emotional. Like, it's emotional. Like, this whole process, this weight loss journey of like losing the weight, and it's emotional. 6. Okay, let's go to our actions, solutions. Disposing of the needles properly, super, super important. Making sure that you're disposing of the needles properly with a sharps container or with a laundry container that's properly labeled. Tip number 7, the after effects. I think this is probably the most important thing, because I was like, if I'm taking this, is it going to feel the same as it did taking Mounjaro, taking Zepbound? Is it going to be the same? And I have literally officially, in terms of time clock, it's been, let me check the time. The video was supposed to be 24 hours after, but I was in LA, so it's actually technically 41 at this very moment in which I'm filming, but my notes of what I noticed was 24 hours after. I was in LA doing this YouTube thing. I wasn't exhausted, tired. I mean, I was tired, but I was tired because I had to get up at 4 a.m. I flew to LA, did a YouTube event for 3 or 4 hours, and then flew back home that night so I could be at car pickup line with my son in the morning. No wonder I'm tired, right? Like, that's an exhausting, heavy lifting schedule. And so the tiredness was there, but usually I feel that fatigue, but that was because of my travel. So I don't really account that as part of, am I having the side effects? What I really noticed was and I've been saying this for months now, of being on Mounjaro 15 milligrams, then Zepbound 15 milligrams, and now compound equivalent to 15 milligrams of the tirzepatide compound, is I got yucky. I ate dinner last night. I ate it, and then afterwards I was like I thought I was gonna throw up. That happens to me with Zepbound 15 milligrams, which tells me, and at that point it had been 24 hours, that the side effects were side effecting. The fact that I had the same nausea that I had had previously on Zepbound, to me, was a very good sign. And some people would be like, you were so excited that you were ready to throw up. Yes, I was, because that told, to me, I interpret that as I'm having the same side effects that I did with Zepbound and that I did with Mounjaro. So I'm having the same side effects. It's now, at the time I'm filming this, is 1 o'clock. I have not eaten today. Part of it is, again, I flew in this morning at like 7 a.m., drove with my husband to drop my kid off at school for a car pickup line, and then have been sleeping for part of it. But I'm really not hungry. I'm gonna go out and we're gonna do another car Zepbound meal series. So make sure you stay tuned to that. It's gonna be a fun one. That's gonna be a really, really fun one. So stay tuned for, you guys have been liking those, so stay tuned to that one. And I need to finish putting on my makeup or whatever. But the after effects it feels the same. Like, I'm pleasantly surprised. Now, here's where a couple of my questions are, and I will do a follow-up videos on this. What about the appetite suppression? I know some of my cues of when I start to get hungry again. When will that start for me? That is where I'm very curious, which is why I'm going to be super intentional today to make sure I have my protein. Make sure, like, as I've been talking in all my videos, 100 to 120 grams of protein plus nutrient-dense foods. Gonna make sure I do that too. And walking still, because that makes me hungry as well, like moving that much too. I'm not doing wall Pilates today. But making sure things are similar, like I want to keep that similar so I can give an honest review. And 1 week into this, I feel like it's going to take a couple weeks to really fully know. Another group member had mentioned about how with compounds, because you do get the different needles, and I have to talk to my own healthcare provider about this. I don't take random advice from people off the internet without confirming with my own healthcare provider. So I will be following up with my healthcare provider on this. And clearly I'm not one. With my 75 units, could I do like 30 units and then 3 days later do 35 units, or vice versa? Can you split them up and take it every 3 to 4 days, depending on the sequence of that, to make it a week? People in my group have done that. Again, I don't have their healthcare provider. I have not run this past my healthcare provider. I've just heard other people talk about that. And so I'm curious, and they do that. They say that that helps with their appetite suppression. For me, that's one of my biggest, most favorite things about taking a GLP-1 medication is the appetite suppression, in which I don't have that ravenous hunger that I previously had. So that's where I'm super, super excited about this. To see if I can do that. So I'm gonna be testing that and asking my healthcare provider. Those are my big things with the compound. Overall, very satisfied, very nervous. Still am very nervous. I'm happy with what I got. I was surprised, by the way, that it came with even like the alcohol pads in here. That was like I thought I was gonna have to provide those. And even the needles too, I was like, am I gonna have to get the needles? So the fact, like, it was relatively easy. Now the bag they had was steamed shut, so I cut it. It was a Ziploc, well, not a Ziploc bag, but like a medical bag. And then I cut it because it had been heat pressed closed. So I just added it to my own little Ziploc baggie. This will go in the same spot in my refrigerator as my Zepbound needles or pens had been too. So my hope and intention again is, we know that the Zepbound shortage or the Eli Lilly shortage, they said on the Q1 2024 investors call to expect shortages into 2025. So this could be for a while. Like right now as I'm filming this, it's May 2024. So it could be at least another 7 months, if not more. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get, and now I'm self-paying. That's the other thing that I think people are going to say, what about the pricing and things like that? My husband and I revamped our budget when I started taking Mounjaro 16 months ago. We revamped our budget. We changed things financially around intentionally by design to be able to make these self-pay things. So just to be clear on that, I am looking with my health insurance does cover Wegovy. However, there's a Wegovy shortage. There wasn't a Wegovy shortage. I would go probably to Wegovy, and also it's covered by my health insurance. Semaglutide, which is Wegovy, have slightly less data with the GLP-1. It's slightly less. Mounjaro and Zepbound are slightly more. And so my husband and I have been weighing, we will weigh the pros and cons once that's available to me of will I switch over to that? Probably. I'm actively looking also for retatrutide. It's the one that's still, it's Eli Lilly, still in trials. It's higher. They're calling it the Godzilla of Ozempic. It's higher, they meaning the media. It's coming, the results are better than Mounjaro, which right now Mounjaro and Zepbound are the highest. They're the same thing, by the way. One's FDA approved, the Mounjaro's FDA approved for type 2 diabetics, and Zepbound's FDA approved for chronic obesity management. But I'm excited about this. You guys told me what to expect, and you guys, that was exactly in my free group, which is why I love my free group. Don't join that free group though if you're rude, mean, unkind. Only nice people. Encouraging people. If you're going through a challenge, great, but we are solution focused too. And so having solutions while we go through these challenges, it's not just a complaint fest. I don't allow that in my space. So, but that is free down below, as is my free Zepbound meal plan, which was dietitian created. I bought it for $500 from a registered dietitian, not a nutritionist, a dietitian. She has more education. She actually has her master's degree in nutrition. And I bought it to give as a free, so I own the licensing rights to give to the Countess shopping community for free. So yeah, if you're on tirzepatide or semaglutide, totally free for you as well. And I will keep you guys posted as we go through this. I'm still nervous. Like I'm still nervous. Like I'm still nervous about all this. I'm curious. I literally after I took my injection, I did want to share this part too. I got the worst headache. I think I had the worst headache because my blood pressure was so high. Literally, I was like shaking. My husband did the back of my arm with the injection and I was shaking. He was really nervous. He doesn't get nervous, by the way. My husband is like super mellow, super chill. And the fact that he was he's like, and that, so next time I had wanted to do the back of my arm because that's where I have the best results. Traditionally for Zepbound and Mounjaro is the back of my arm. So I wanted to be consistent with that because last week, I took my Zepbound on the back of my arm. And so I wanted to have that same level of comparison. So next week, I will do it myself, probably do it in my thigh. I don't think I'm gonna do my stomach because I have a tremendous amount of scar tissue now from stretch marks and loose skin. And so I gotta read more about that. If you guys know, cite your sources down below or tell me where I should start looking too of like, they tell us not to inject, they meaning like for Mounjaro and Zepbound, Eli Lilly, for those, not compounds, but for the pens, not to put it in scar tissue. So like I have stretch marks that are scars, you know what I mean? Like the white stripes, they look like a tiger. I feel like that's similar in terms of the injection, but it's all over my stomach. It's a hot mess. People are like, oh, can I see your stretch mark? I'm like, no. I will talk about a lot on the internet. I'm not talking about that. Like, I'm not showing that. So you can just imagine, it's a mess. At some point, I'll have a plastic surgeon take care of that, but today's not that day. That's a topic for another conversation. But I hope that this video is helpful. Again, do your research, do your research, do your research. I love Join Fridays. Use the discount code, all capital letters, Queen, but you still do your due diligence, right? We have to be responsible for our own health. I see creators here in this space and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a train wreck. Like, just be mindful. Same thing for some of my stuff too. Stuff that I said a while back. If you'll notice some of my, like I lost weight here on YouTube with keto and I gained it all back and then some. So just, I'm putting that out there for full authenticity. Some of those videos I actually did take down just to give some context if people ever go back and they're like, where are those videos? I took down hundreds of those videos because they weren't in alignment. Have I taken down all of them? No, because I don't have time to take down hundreds of videos. I just don't. I run a very successful company. I don't have time to do that. And I'm a wife and I'm a mom, and that's not best served. No one's watching those videos anyway. Maybe mentioning them now, people will, but it's not best, like, people aren't watching them anyway. Two is people weren't watching them anyways. But I did take them, some of them down because they're not in alignment with my belief system now. Like, I don't do keto now. I do low carb, but I can't do keto because my stomach, because of the gastrointestinal issues, like I can't. So anyways, next time I'll clean up my room. Literally just got back from LA. I'm exhausted. My suitcase is right there. I need to go wipe it down with Clorox wipes and then go wash all my clothes. YouTube was amazing and fun and fabulous. If you guys didn't see my Instagram stories on Countess of Shopping Instagram stories, go over there. I had so much fun. And I learned a lot too, which was really, really exciting. I'm pumped. I like took notes and notes and notes and notes and notes. It was a really cool event of like YouTube stuff. And I got to find out all these upcoming secrets too at YouTube, which I'm really, really pumped about too. So I can't wait to share those with you guys too. I love YouTube. I love it here. So, and I love you guys too. So action items. What are you doing today to move you closer to your goals? Tell me in the comments below. Let me hold you accountable. And number 2, our emoji today is going to be curlers. Curlers. These were the T3 curlers too, by the way. I'll make sure I have them down in, there should be like a little over here or over here. You'll see a little thing that says T3 curlers, hopefully. Hopefully. So our emoji today, and that emoji will let me know that you made it this far in the video, which means I will pray over you. If you don't believe in prayer, I'll uplift you in positive thought, but it also helps me, most importantly, to get to know you better. Like, I really want to know you. Our community is amazing the last 16 months, making so many friends and people who I don't know that are counts and countesses, who I really rely on a daily basis, like how you guys count on me. I count on you guys too. Like, so many of you guys are true, like, we've never met, but we're really, really good friends. And that's like, what a blessing. What a blessing to not have to do this alone. And that's where also in the free group comes along too, of that group is high quality. It is amazing. If for some reason you didn't get into the group, shoot me an email. It probably got flagged as spam. It's not that I don't want you in the group. It's that there's spammers that try to come in, and I hold the line on that of making sure it stays a quality group. And then the group also kind of polices itself too, in a sense, of spammers as well. I'm gonna go put this back on the refrigerator. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. I'm Countess of Shopping. Count my blessings because life is delicious. I'll keep you posted on what happens next.